I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with Emily for about 5 years now. We met in college, hit it off pretty quickly, and I always thought we had a solid thing going. She was a little bitchy sometimes, yeah, but I figured that was just her charm. She's the type who can be totally sweet one second and then snap at you the next. Kind of a wild card, but I liked her fiery side. From the start, I noticed some weird stuff happening. She started dressing differently, more revealing, more flirtatious, I guess. She also started spending a lot more time on her phone, always hiding it when I walked into the room. I'd catch her smiling at her screen or quickly deleting text messages. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was strange. She'd brush it off with her usual lies, just talking to my sister, or just checking social media, but I could tell she was hiding something. Then little things started piling up. Her phone bill got bigger, and she'd come home smelling different sometimes, like perfume I did recognize. She'd make excuses, call me paranoid. Honestly, I thought maybe I was overthinking it, but deep down I knew something was off. The final straw was when I found a lipstick stain on her shirt that I definitely didn't put there. That's when my gut told me I needed to look deeper. One night I was going through some of our old stuff, just cleaning up the closet, and I stumbled across something that made my stomach drop. It was her lingerie drawer. I know it sounds stupid, but I had this weird feeling that maybe there was more to her than I was seeing, so I peeked in when she was out. Inside, I found a bunch of her sexy lingerie, nothing too unusual at first. But then I saw something tucked behind her bras, a small, crumpled piece of paper. I pulled it out carefully, thinking maybe it was a receipt or something innocent. Instead, I saw a name. A guy's name. My heart started pounding. I looked closer. It was a jury consultant's name, Tom. My mind went blank. I remembered hearing her mention a Tom before, but I never thought she'd be cheating with him. I kept reading, and there was a string of texts between them, all flirty, some explicit. They'd been talking for weeks, maybe longer. It hit me like a punch to the gut. She was screwing around with this guy during my whistleblower lawsuit against my former company. I had no idea she was involved with someone so deep, so calculated. And the worst part, the documents. I found a bunch of case strategy files in her lingerie drawer, stuff I'd never seen before. It was all about my lawsuit, my case. Evidence, notes, even secret strategies. She'd been helping him, Tom, plan some kind of interference. I don't know if she was paid or just wanted to hurt me, but I knew I had to confront her. It wasn't just cheating, she'd betrayed me on a level I couldn't even process. I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of rage, heartbreak, and disbelief. I had never been this angry before. That night, I decided I needed to see her face when she lied to me. I waited until she got home, heart pounding, and then I sat her down. I'd never done this before, never accused her outright. But I knew. I laid everything out on the table, how I found the stuff, what I saw, the texts, the files. She looked shocked at first, then defensive. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're just paranoid, you're imagining things, this is all a mistake." She lied so smoothly, so bitchy in her tone, trying to gaslight me, but I wasn't buying it. I could see the guilt all over her face, even if she was trying to hide it. I asked her directly, "Are you sleeping with him? Are you cheating on me?" She rolled her eyes and spat, "Oh, please. Tom and I are just friends. You're overreacting, you're so insecure." But I knew better. I could see through her bullshit. That's when I realized how much she'd been manipulating me all along, lying, pretending. I felt humiliated, angry, and heartbroken all at once. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, especially when I'd been fighting so hard for my career? That night, I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was drowning. I kept replaying her lies, her sneers, her dismissiveness. I thought about all the years we spent together and how she'd betrayed every bit of it. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, but I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to figure out my next move, and it wasn't going to be pretty. The next day, I couldn't focus on anything else. My mind kept circling back to that night, to her lies, to the files, to Tom. I started piecing together everything I knew, how she had been sneaking around, helping him sabotage my lawsuit, and the fact that she'd been hiding case documents in her lingerie drawer. It was almost surreal. I kept asking myself, how deep had this been going? How long had she been lying to me? I decided I needed more concrete proof, something that would crush her arguments if she tried to deny everything. I started digging into her phone, her emails, her social media accounts. I wanted to catch her in a lie to see if I could find any more evidence. She was cunning, though. She'd cover her tracks well, deleting messages, hiding apps. It was like she'd prepared for me to find out. Still, I wasn't going down without a fight. That afternoon, I broke into her email account. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't keep pretending. I found more texts, flirty messages with Tom, explicit photos, even plans to meet up again. There was a message where she talked about how we both know what this is, and don't worry, I'll keep it secret from him. That one really hit hard. She was clearly lying about everything, trying to keep up her act of innocence. I also discovered that she'd been seeing Tom at a cheap motel nearby. The timeline matched up perfectly with the nights I'd been out of town for work or busy with my case. She'd been playing me from the start, and I felt like such an idiot for not seeing it sooner. All those little signs, her mood swings, her secretive behavior, had been leading me right here. I thought about confronting her again, but I knew she'd have her excuses ready. Instead, I started making a plan. I wasn't going to let her wiggle her way out of this. I had the files, the texts, the photos, everything I needed. The next step was to gather allies, figure out how to expose her discreetly. I knew I couldn't just blow everything up immediately, I had to play it smart. But my biggest shock was when I found a note she'd written, hidden in the files. It was a confession. She admitted to helping Tom with the case, helping him sabotage my legal strategy. She said she did it for the thrill, and that she hated the idea of me winning so easily, so she wanted to make sure I lost everything. That was the moment I realized how deep her betrayal went. It wasn't just about cheating. She was actively working against me, my own wife. I remember sitting there, staring at the note, feeling a mixture of rage, disgust, and sadness. How could she do this? How could she betray me so easily after everything we'd been through? I started questioning everything. Was I just a fool for trusting her? Was I just a pawn in her game all along? I couldn't believe I married someone who was capable of so much deception. I knew I had to confront her again, face her with everything I'd uncovered. I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this one. I planned to catch her in her own web of lies, to make her face the reality of what she'd done. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd been betrayed on every level, emotionally, legally, and morally, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. That night I waited for her to come home, my phone in hand, ready to record if she tried to deny anything. I had the evidence laid out on my laptop, ready to show her. When she finally walked in, I didn't hold back. I told her I knew everything, the texts, the files, the meeting pictures, and I wanted her to explain. She immediately started to spin her lies, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. But I had proof, and I made sure she knew it. Her face went pale when she realized I wasn't bluffing. She tried to deny everything, claiming she was just helping Tom out, that it was all a mistake, and that I was overreacting. But I laid it all out clear. How she'd been involved in sabotaging my case, how she'd been cheating on me, and how she'd been lying from the start. I saw her eyes darting, trying to come up with another excuse, but I wasn't buying it anymore. That moment was the turning point. I felt a strange mixture of relief and devastation. Relief that I finally knew the truth, but devastation that she could do something so cold, so calculated. I thought about our past, about the good times we shared, and it felt like they were all shattered in that instant. It's crazy how betrayal can turn your whole world upside down in a matter of hours. After I laid out everything, Emily just stood there, eyes wide, lips trembling. She tried to act like I was crazy. "You're overreacting," she snapped, her usual bitchy tone. "You're just paranoid like always. I don't know what you're talking about." But I'd seen enough, heard enough, and had enough evidence to know she was full of crap. I pulled out her own secret notes and files, showing her the confession she had written herself. Her face went from anger to panic in seconds. She started to cry, but not because she was sorry. It was more like she was furious that I'd caught her, furious she could keep hiding behind her lies anymore. She spat at me, accusing me of stalking her, of invading her privacy. "You're crazy," she kept repeating. "You don't understand what's really going on. You're so insecure, it's pathetic." That was her favorite line, always trying to make me feel like I was the problem, not her. But this time her words just bounced off. I knew the truth now, and I wasn't about to let it slide. I told her I was done. I said she could keep her lies and her cheating, but I wasn't going to stay married to someone who'd betray me this thoroughly. I told her I was filing for divorce, and that I was taking everything I had to the lawyers, every file, every piece of evidence I could find. It was clear to me now that she'd been using me, manipulating me, and that the whole marriage was a lie. I felt betrayed, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity about what I needed to do. That night I packed a bag and stayed at a friend's place. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Every time I thought about her, shrieking and denying everything, my stomach clenched. I couldn't believe I married someone so manipulative, so willing to throw everything away for some affair and a little thrill. I kept thinking about how she'd helped Tom sabotage my case, all just to get back at me. It was like I'd been played for a fool from day one. I started reaching out to a lawyer the next morning. I needed to get my ducks in a row, protect my case, my reputation, and myself. The thought of losing everything I'd worked for because she decided to cheat, to help some guy sabotage my career, made me sick. There was a part of me that wanted to confront Tom, to tell him how much he'd screwed me over, but I knew that wouldn't help. I had to focus on the legal side now. While I was at it, I also realized how much her betrayal had hurt my confidence. I'd always been a straightforward guy, honest, hardworking, dedicated. But now I felt like I'd been playing a role in a twisted soap opera. Every time I looked at her, I saw the bitchy, lying woman I thought I knew, but underneath was a different person entirely. Someone who'd lie, cheat, and betray everything we'd built. I wondered how I'd ever trust anyone again, especially after this. She kept trying to call me, begging for another chance, crying about how she didn't mean for it to go this far, but honestly, I didn't want to hear it. I felt numb. The only thing I knew was that I needed to get away from her, to rebuild from this mess. I started thinking about what I wanted: justice, closure, and maybe someday trust again. But not with her. Not after all this. I knew I'd have to face the fallout soon enough. She'd try to spin her side, probably accuse me of stalking or harassment, as she always did when she got caught. But I had everything now. The evidence was solid. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. This betrayal cut so deep, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I had uncovered the whole truth, and that was the first step toward healing, even if it hurt like hell right now. As I sat alone in that apartment that night, I started thinking about what I learned. From all this, trust is fragile, I guess, especially with someone you think you know. And betrayal, it's like a poison that slowly eats away at you if you let it. But I also realized I was stronger than I thought. I'd get through this, rebuild, and somehow I'd find a way to move on. The pain was real, but so was the clarity. It was time to cut her out of my life for good. The days that followed were a blur of meetings with lawyers, gathering more evidence, and trying to process everything that had happened. Every time I thought I had a handle on it, another shock hit me. I'd find more messages, more proof that she'd been actively working against me. The most brutal part was knowing how deep her lies went, how she'd been pretending to be innocent while secretly helping Tom sabotage my lawsuit, and worse, helping him cheat on me. I started to see her in a different light. Emily, the woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, she was a master manipulator. Every smile, every kiss had been a lie. She'd been lying from the moment she hid those files in her lingerie drawer right under my nose. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, what I missed, but honestly I knew the truth. She was a bitch, and she was good at hiding her true nature. She was selfish, vindictive, and capable of betraying her vows for a thrill or a quick revenge. I also had to face the fact that my whole lawsuit was compromised from the start. That was the most infuriating part. She'd helped Tom manipulate the case, leak strategic files, and even plant false evidence. The thought that I'd been fighting this legal battle, thinking I was doing the right thing, only to find out my wife was actively working against me, made me want to punch something. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about her actively sabotaging my life. I decided I had to get ahead of her. I met with my lawyer and laid everything out, proof of her cheating, her involvement with Tom, the sabotage. We discussed how to approach the divorce, how to protect my case, and how to ensure she couldn't manipulate the situation anymore. I was determined to make sure she paid for what she'd done, not just emotionally, but legally. She crossed a line. I was done playing nice. Meanwhile, she kept trying to contact me, sending angry texts, begging me to talk, to listen. Every message was a new humiliation. She accused me of damaging her reputation, of lying about her, just trying to spin her way out of it. She even called me paranoid and crazy, like I was the one at fault. It was so typical of her, blame shifting, lying, manipulating. But I saw right through it. I knew her game now. One day she showed up at my place uninvited, tears streaming down her face, trying to look innocent. She said she was sorry, that she'd made a terrible mistake, that she loved me and wanted to fix everything. I looked at her and felt nothing but disgust. I told her to leave, that I'd already made up my mind. I told her I was done with her lies, done with the betrayal. I told her she'd destroyed everything we had built, and I didn't want anything to do with her anymore. The worst part was seeing her fall apart and realizing she didn't care about me at all. She was only worried about herself. That moment I felt a terrible mix of anger and relief. Anger that she could do this, and relief that I finally saw the truth. I knew I was better off without her, even if it hurt like hell. I'd been a fool for so long, but now I was starting to see clearly. I began to focus on rebuilding. I started therapy, not just to deal with the betrayal, but to regain my confidence and sense of self. I had to remind myself that I was still the same person, honest, hardworking, committed. She had tried to tear me down, but I refused to let her win. I knew I'd need time to heal, time to trust again, but I was determined to move forward. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to think I truly knew someone. Emily was a manipulative, bitchy wife who betrayed me on every level. The shock of discovering her affair, especially with Tom, a guy who was supposed to be just a client or a colleague, changed everything. It was like discovering the woman I loved was a total stranger, someone capable of lying, cheating, and sabotaging my career from the inside out. In the end, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that trust is fragile and that the people closest to you can sometimes hurt you the worst. I also learned that revenge isn't always about getting back at someone. Sometimes, it's about walking away and reclaiming your life. I'm not perfect, and I still have scars, but I know I'm better off without her. That betrayal lit a fire in me. I'll never let someone do that to me again. I'm moving on, stronger than ever, and honestly ready for whatever comes next. After I decided to end things with Emily, the aftermath was a whirlwind. The divorce process moved fast. She didn't put up much of a fight, probably because she knew I had her dead to rights with all the evidence I had gathered. Still, she made it as ugly as possible. She accused me of stalking her, of invading her privacy, and even tried to turn our friends and family against me. Classic Emily, always the victim, always spinning the story her way. I kept my distance. I focused on the legal side, making sure my case was airtight and that my reputation wouldn't be damaged further. I hired a private investigator to follow her, nothing malicious, just to confirm she was sticking to her new single-woman life and not doing anything else that might jeopardize the case. Turns out, she was still in contact with Tom, and I caught her sneaking around with him a few more times. It was almost sickening to watch her betray not just me, but her own integrity. During that time, I also started reflecting on what I'd learned from this whole nightmare. Honestly, I'd underestimated her from the start. I thought I knew her, thought she was just a fiery, bitchy woman who loved her independence. But she was something else entirely. A manipulator, a liar, someone who would betray her own vows just for some thrill or revenge. It made me question everything about trust, relationships, and the kind of person I want to be with in the future. At the same time, I was trying to rebuild my confidence. I threw myself into work, into hobbies I'd neglected, and into therapy. I realized I had been so focused on fighting her, fighting the betrayal, that I'd lost sight of myself. Now, I was trying to piece myself back together, better, stronger, more cautious about who I let into my life. I knew I'd never forget what she did, but I also knew I couldn't keep living in the past. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I moved out of the place we shared. I rented a small apartment nearby, just enough space to breathe and start over. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. I didn't want her to be part of my life anymore, not even as a distant memory. It was painful, but it was necessary. I had to cut the cord completely if I wanted to heal. One thing I've come to realize is how much that betrayal changed my perspective. I used to believe in loyalty, honesty, trust, things I thought were fundamental. Now, I see that sometimes people hide who they really are until it's too late, and that's a hard lesson. But it also made me more aware of my own boundaries. I won't tolerate lies, betrayal, or manipulation anymore. I'll be more cautious, more observant, and more honest with myself about what I need from someone I trust. Honestly, I still get angry when I think about her, especially when I remember how she lied and betrayed me for her own selfish reasons. But I also feel a strange kind of relief, relief that I finally uncovered the truth, relief that I didn't let her destroy me completely. I know she wanted to ruin my reputation, sabotage my case, even destroy the trust I had in the people around me. But I came out of it intact, and I'm proud of that. Most of all, I learned that sometimes love isn't enough. That betrayal can come from the people you trust the most, and it hurts like hell. But it's also a wake-up call, one that forces you to reevaluate your life and your choices. I'm not bitter, I'm just more cautious now. I'm more aware of the red flags and the things I want in a relationship. And I'm grateful that I found out who she really was before I invested even more of myself in her. So yeah, that's my story. I don't have a fairy tale ending, and I probably never will with her. But I do have clarity. I have a new beginning, and I'm determined to make it better. I might be scarred, but I'm also stronger, more resilient than I ever thought I could be. And honestly, that's what matters most. Looking back, I realize how much that whole ordeal changed me. I used to think trust was unbreakable, that marriage meant sticking through thick and thin, but now I see it's more complicated. Betrayal cuts so deep that it forces you to rethink everything you believed about love, loyalty, and honesty. The worst part was learning that the person I gave my life to, Emily, had been lying, cheating, and scheming behind my back all along. It wasn't just her affair with Tom. It was her active involvement in sabotaging my case, our marriage, and even her own integrity. The aftermath has been a long, painful process of healing. I've gone through phases of anger, sadness, disbelief, and even a little self-doubt. But eventually I realized something crucial. I deserved better. I deserved someone honest, someone who would stand by me, not betray me for a quick thrill or petty revenge. Moving on is still a work in progress, but I've learned to trust myself more, trust my instincts, my judgment, and my feelings. I also learned that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity. I didn't go after Emily or Tom publicly, even though I wanted to. Instead, I focused on myself, building a new life, one free of lies and deception. I threw myself into my work, started new hobbies, and reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Slowly, I began to feel like myself again, stronger and more aware of what I need from a relationship. One thing I want to say to anyone reading this: don't ignore the red flags. Don't dismiss the little things that feel off, because, trust me, they add up. If you suspect someone is hiding something, whether it's cheating, lying, or betraying your trust, pay attention. The truth always finds a way out, and it's better to face it early than to get blindsided later. And to those who might be going through something similar, know that you're not alone. It hurts like hell, but you will get through it. Take your time to heal, lean on the people who support you, and don't be afraid to walk away from toxic situations. Your happiness and peace of mind are what truly matter. Finally, I want to say that I've learned a lot about myself in this process. I've discovered that I am resilient, that I can survive the worst betrayals and come out on the other side with a clearer sense of who I am. I've also learned to trust my own judgment and to be more cautious about who I let into my life. Betrayal is a terrible thing, but it's also a lesson, a brutal but necessary one. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: I refuse to let this define me. I will keep moving forward, stronger and wiser. and I hope anyone in a similar situation finds the courage to do the same. Because at the end of the day, the only person you can truly count on is yourself. And trust me, that's enough.